Senator John Cornyn just actually estimated how he actually views this upcoming nomination and confirmation procedure of Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Technically, this nomination was already done, but now we are expecting to see the confirmation vote on the Senate floor in next week. So that's a very interesting part because we are actually expecting to have the upcoming voting, right? That would dictate her future, whether she could actually assume the role as a Supreme Court justice or not. I actually jumped in the middle of the conversation, but all he actually said was this. Mm, Even though Democrats try their very best to snub the nose, they're actually trying to throw something irrelevant into the system by distracting the meaningful judgeship Amy Coney Barrett could have possibly have if confirmed. There must be a very constructive decision because Judge Amy Coney Barrett already throughout the procedures and hearings manifested her sound jurisprudence and judicial temperance. The problem is, was she was less political than she could ever be by keeping herself grounded in the realm of politics, especially emotional world politics. That means her understanding and the worldview would be appreciated by the folks, even across the aisle. You remember Senate Judiciary Committee's senior member, Dianne Feinstein, embraced Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the same committee. That was really the sign. Everything was well taken care of despite the differences. Even against the odds, there could be a shimmer of a hope that bipartisan collaboration could be possible. That type of idea was planted. Of course, that this would have never actually lead any Democrats to vote for Amy Coney Barrett. However, this positively indicated that Amy Coney Barrett could be across the party lines favored justice candidate. So this could actually eventually help her to obtain what she wants to have. Maybe. So we need to see what would have happened. But that's really the notion delivered by this Senator John Cornyn from Texas. He's a Republican senator from the state of Lone Star. And another interesting thing is, Joe Biden is really against the notion of this court packing, and the Democrats are really furious about fast tracking the confirmation procedure of Amy Coney Barrett. They were saying that this is nothing but a nut job done while they're pulling the wool over the public's eye, even at the cost of labeling them as the greatest hypocrite on earth, right? Think about what they had done to Merrick Garland during the Obama era. He was never actually given a hearing. But the problem is that there had been a suggestion that Joe Biden is up for the possible constitutional study committee. He's been really into the constitutional court system study, as well as contemplating over the possibility of having two senators from underrepresented Puerto Rico. This type of notions were somehow introduced, right? There could be extra senators starting from 1 to 2 because the Puerto Rico was not technically part of the US 50 states, so their voices are not being politically represented technically. The United States Senate consists of 100 different members coming from all different states. Each state claims 2 seats, whether it's California or Iowa. Every state has equal opportunity in the Senate. But the House of Representatives has different options, right? That's a demographically proportional. But what I want to say is very simple. Republicans do not appreciate this type of a politicization by giving a power to Puerto Rico because they believe the Puerto Ricans are likely to favor Democrats. And in addition to that, they even actually cite notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, saying that she was really against the notion that any type of external influence could sway the vote of the Supreme Court, or it could change the perception of the Supreme Court, because the highest court, as part of the judicial branch, should be independent and neutral, untouched or scathed by external political influence and clout. No political atmosphere in the nation should dictate the future move and the steps of the judicial branch. That was her firm conviction, and it was voiced once more again by Senator John Cornyn. But I'm not really so sure his quotation would be proper. He even actually depicted it as the crown jewel of American democracy. That means that that's the very best of the American democracy. And this, Fox moderator actually just said that, oh, Senator John Cornyn, you and your fellow Republicans are working really hard. They've been actually, breathing along. It means that they've been actually doing all they could in order to bring justice back to the judicial branch, which would represent the greater portion of conservatives. But Democrats criticize this effort as court packing, or politicization of the judicial branch. However, the GOP would never agree with this type of interpretation, saying that Democrats are now acting very deceitfully to introduce legislation which might empower the Puerto Rico in favor of their political growth and power, because if Puerto Rico would be identified with the Democrats, there are greater probabilities. That means that would be the likely case. If this island named Puerto Rico would have political influence, just like the rest of American states like Wyoming or Hawaii, then Democrats would have a great ally in alliance with California and Hawaii, right? That's really the case. So Republicans are really against the notion. And in addition to that, Joe Biden is really thinking about inventing so-called constitutional study panel. He's been really interested in analyzing the core system, and he's been very much eager to analyze the framers' ideology when they even actually lay down the plan for the Supreme Court. But this type of a meddling would be very much heavily denounced and rejected by Republicans, saying that no presidential authority should intervene with the judicial temperance. That means the executive branches should stay away from the business of the core system, because the core is entitled to keep its neutrality in the face of a political sway. No matter what type of a political event that might eventually change the landscape of the nation, politically or socioeconomically, This type of interference could denaturalize or even disparage the neutrality of the country's crown jewel in democracy. The separation of powers and the checks and balances, these are really the principles that should never be tainted with the pollutants called the political influence. But now what Democrats are vying to achieve in the form of political machinations, that sounds nothing less than a political interference. And they were just simply trying to legalize the breakdown of divisions existing in the system in order to keep the impartiality when it comes to social justice and criminal justice and legal justice.